This is episode 3 of Lorenz's predictions. Under normal circumstances, negotiations of rent reviews, lease renewals, and negotiations between tenants and landlords on break clauses are fairly simplistic. A good agent may be 5% below what another agent is, or acting for landlord 5% above. But the coronavirus has hit us since March 2020. And there hasn't been a market on which comparables can be established for almost a year, with most companies battening down the hatches, thinking about their future requirements, and little or no activity, especially in the leisure and retail markets, but also affecting the office market. So we are blindfolded, right, to be candid, with regard to what is the evidence of a June 2020, or even worse still, a December 2020 rent of an office building, let's say in Mayfair, which would guide us as to the appropriate rent which a rent review should be settled at. A tenant who has a break clause or a lease expiry has got an enormous advantage, whereby the landlord has to face reality if he exercises his break, or actually makes moves to relocate. And there is no doubt that on the office section, people are rethinking their requirements, that the 3-day week is going to create a less need for the amount of offices which tenants had before the virus. And in layman's, for example, in Layman's went in September 2008, September the 15th. We handled 3 rent reviews in Queensbury House or Burlington Street, which were settled June 08 at £102 a square foot, September 08 at £78 a square foot, and December 08 £68 a square foot. So if we take that factor, it could be that the market has fallen by 32% or even more for offices. You've only got to turn on the news to see the calamity which has affected the leisure market, and whether the leisure market will ever come back again, we don't know. But there is no doubt that rents are going to be affected even more, right, on restaurant, bar, club, gym, right, and even hotel rent reviews. Who knows where this market is eventually going to fall to, and who knows what the future forecasts are going to be with regard to not only trying to return back to work in May as we now hear from the government, but it could be extended longer with a new virus, etc. So most important message to all tenants and landlords is to look at your rent review date now. Look at whether you've got a break clause, which could be an enormous advantage to a tenant and maybe a fearful for a landlord, so that he treats his tenant with kid gloves and keeps him alive. And same applies with regard to a tenant who's got a lease expiry. I'm not saying there won't be pain all round, because the coronavirus market is indiscriminatory and hits tenants, landlords and bankers, but hopefully they can work together to find solutions, and we're here to help them, being this our very specialist field. I've been doing rent reviews for the last 54 years, seen the market changes, seen the dynamic changes, and asset management between tenants and landlords is what we do. We've been very successful now, I couldn't have said this last June, in getting landlords, tenants and bankers to cooperate, to find solutions, and hopefully we can help any recipients of this third of my series in connection with their deliberations, whether it's disposing of existing space and downsizing, some are upsizing, but most importantly is to really focus on terms of leases which are held as existing, which are often the catalyst towards doing a deal with the landlords to help them give coronavirus rent-free periods. As an example, if your lease expires in June 2022 and you've made a decision to stay in occupation, then perhaps the landlords will give a 6 to 9 months rent-free period in order to get a 1-year lease extension and get them out of reletting premises when the market is still going to be, when the new market is still going to be in its infancy. Things are changing, things have changed, but they're impossible to prove at the moment, and that's why navigating through these dark clouds and also, more importantly, very stormy seas on the horizon need a lot of foresight and a certain amount of guesswork as well, not only on the part of the tenant but also the landlord. Is he prepared to turn round and say, you're on £100 a square foot at the moment and I'll do a deal at £70 a square foot? Or does he wait to see what happens if you can break or have a lease expiry? Our advice is, with the tenant moving, negotiate the best deal you can with the landlord, look on the market to see whether a better deal is available, and move if the moving costs can be taken into consideration, and run the negotiation two ways. In the same way, when we're acting for landlord with a tenant coming to us, we're looking for who we could replace that tenant with if they are to go, and we have to balance up whether the offer from the tenant is good enough to accept, or whether we play on to replace them with somebody else. So that's the update for today. We'll hear a lot more in early March with regard to what the government do when the moratorium is left off. I personally suspect that they'll extend it by 3 months, but we made a petition to the government, which is on our website, not to just allow the moratorium just to come off so that landlords can serve stacked demands and winding up orders and bust an already bust market, because tenants would just hand back the keys, especially in hospitality, but to work with their tenants and bankers to find a solution to possibly collect rent over a period of back rent over a period of a year, which we're asking the government to do, let alone extending the moratorium until June to give email time to negotiate under these very difficult circumstances. Hope you enjoyed the update, and welcome calls or emails to discuss where we go next. Sorry that I can't be more clear, but clarity is not there at the moment. It will pan out over the next 3 to 6 months. We'll see deals done, and they will form a new market evidence, which is not only post-coronavirus, hopefully, but also is a during the coronavirus evidence on which we can at least rest upon as some comparables. We are doing 3 or 4 acquisitions at the moment in central London, Mayfair, Fitzrovia, etc., where we will see what I'm forecasting today panning out. Look forward to hearing from you. Thanks.